Okay, so this is the final lesson of Unit 5, Lesson 52, Test Crosses and Environmental Influence on Phenotype. We're going to talk about the second topic first. Environmental influence or influences on phenotype. Remember that phenotype is what your expression is, what can be measured, what can be observed. Cash's phenotype for his hair is brown. It's what we can see. It's what can be measured. It's what can be observed. So something that we have already established for many weeks now, we've established that traits are determined by genes carried on chromosomes received from mom and dad. We are humans. We all have 46 chromosomes, at least you're expected to. You receive 23 from your mother, you receive 23 from your father, and on those genes, on those chromosomes are your parents' genes. So you get half of what your mom is, you get half of what your dad is. Well, that determines your genotype. Some of you might have been told, oh my gosh, you look just like your mother. Oh my gosh, you look just like your father. That's genetics, that's chromosomal. But there's other factors that can determine your phenotypes besides the traits you inherited from your parents. The phenotypes, phenotype for some traits is not solely based on genetics. So, Mr. Identical Twin, I have a twin in this class. You guys are identical, right?
Yeah.
So do you and your brother have the same DNA?
No.
Yes, you do. I have one of two twins in this class. If you guys don't know how identical twins works, you don't need to write this down. This is just for this class. You start out with a zygote, and inexplicably, the zygote splits. It doesn't split into two cells like I've been telling you. I mean, it splits into two zygotes. And so you basically have two copies of the same thing. And then that will eventually grow up, give it 9 months. You'll have two little babies that are identical. You and your brother have identical DNA. If I took a DNA sample from him and I took a DNA sample from you, it would be a match. All right. But let's say that you were raised in Alaska and your brother was raised in Florida. Who do you think would be Tanner? Why?
He gets more sunlight.
Bingo. Is that genetic or is that environmental? Right. That's environmental. So even identical twins who might have different experiences or different environmental exposures and like different environmental factors that they're raised in, that can change their phenotype. So this is known as phenotype plasticity. This is when individuals with the same genotype exhibit different phenotypes in different environments. So we're talking about Alaska and Canada, or Alaska and Florida. Those are obviously two places that are in the Northern Hemisphere, but we're today, when I'm recording this, is December 7th, 2023, Pearl Harbor Day, by the way. It's December 7th, right? Yeah. I'm going to just give you guys some sunrise times and some sunset times. So series service in the school is really rough, but let's see if I can get some service here. You don't need to write these down. Give me a town in Alaska that you've heard of. Okay. And we're going to compare it to Tampa. We have rise. We have set. All right, here we go. Hey, Siri. What time is sunrise in Anchorage, Alaska? 9:57 a.m. Okay. Hey, Siri. What time is sunrise in Tampa, Florida? 7:08. Okay. Hey, Siri. What time is sunset in Anchorage, Alaska? 3:44 p.m. And I have on my watch, Tampa is 5:34. So your hypothesis is correct that your brother that's born and raised in Tampa would likely be tanner. And if you were in Alaska, you would likely be paler because you're not getting all that UV radiation. And UV rays is what stimulates melanin secretion, which is what makes us darker skinned. So that would be environmental. Now to continue on, some characteristics are multifactorial. Means they have multiple factors. They're influenced by both genotype or genetic and environmental factors. Alex, are you a middle linebacker or an outside linebacker? Okay. Guys, you all know our main man Alex on the playing high school defense. I don't know if you know Alex personally, but he's a pretty big guy. He's a high school linebacker for a pretty good team. You work out, Alex? I'm going to put you on the spot and embarrass you. You work out. Would you be as muscular as you are if you were on the golf team?
No.
Probably not. So would you eat as much as you probably eat if you were on the golf team? Probably not. Alex is the size he is based on partially his genetics, but also his environment, his nourishment, his exercise routine. That's environmental, but it doesn't just manifest out of nothing. It does have a genetic component, but there's also an environmental component too. And that's called a multifactorial traits that we have that are influenced by your genes and the environment. So I have some other human examples for you all. And I'm going to show you some pictures here in a moment. One I've obviously talked about already is skin color. If you have twin brothers, one is raised in Tampa, Florida, the other one is raised in Anchorage, Alaska, I would completely agree that the one in Tampa is probably going to have more tan skin than the one in Alaska because he's exposed to more UV radiation. I mean, look at Anchorage. The sun rises nearly 2 hours after we do, and the sun sets nearly 2 hours before it sets for us. They're on top of the planet. Another one is going to be height and weight. Alex, how much you weigh? Okay, that's right. You're going to weigh more than me. I weigh about 220, 225. I've been 6'5" since I was in high school. When I played high school football, I weighed 240. I was big. Could I have gotten this tall and that big from eating ice? No. I was seeing in the news the other day, there's a big problem. I think they said in Africa, which most countries are third world countries, not a lot of resources, where the children are not growing as much as they should be because they don't have enough nutrition to fuel that growth. You guys need to realize that matter is not created nor is it destroyed. Alex can't just manifest muscle. He can't just work out and that's it. He has to eat a lot. And then when he works out, the food he eats, which is matter, he's putting matter into his body. And when he exercises, he's converting that matter into mass on his bones. You can't just work out and expect to get bigger. You got to eat a lot too. You got to fuel the jet, as they say. So I got to be this tall from being properly nourished when I was growing up. If I was malnourished, I would not be 6'5". If you guys were malnourished, you will not be the heights that you are now. I want to give you some human examples. So let me switch what I'm sharing here to the internet. Hold on a second. Before I do that, let's go here. There we go. Yeah. All right. So this guy is Brad Culpepper. His kids went to play in high school. You may have seen him billboards and commercials around town. He's an attorney here in Tampa. He used to play for the Bucks, and there's a picture of him with the Bucks. If you look at him with the Bucks, he was huge. I don't know if you ever met an NFL player before, but they're enormous human beings because they play a really rough sport. They got to be strong. They got to be able to take a hit. And there's a player for the Chargers who recently said this year, he's about my height, but probably 80 pounds bigger. And he said eating is no longer joyful for him because it is a job. He's like, oh man, it's 3:00. I got to go eat 20 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches now. He's got to maintain that size, which is environmental. But a lot of times these NFL players, when they retire, they lose a lot of weight because they're no longer required to eat all day, all night. Here's another player, former player. He played for the Colts. On the right is how big he was during his playing career. And on the left, that polo looks pretty baggy on him because he's lost so much weight. He doesn't have to eat like he's an offensive lineman anymore. Here's the picture just with skin. You can see how, I know this is sometimes done with makeup, but let's say that these are twin girls. One was in Alaska, one is in Florida. The environment is going to have an influence on your actual pigmentation. And then you got the whole eating. When you eat properly, you're well nourished. You're probably going to be in good physical condition. But if you're malnourished, you're not going to have as much growth. You're not going to have as much muscle mass and so on. Okay. All right. Let's go back. And I want to give you some other examples in nature beyond humans. Okay. Other examples of the environment influencing your phenotype in nature. One is going to be crocodilian, which are alligators and crocodiles, and sea turtle. Gender is determined by incubation temperature. I don't know if you guys knew this, but in some species, particularly crocodilians and sea turtles, the temperature at which the eggs are during their incubation in the sand or in the alligator nest, that determines their gender. Colder temperatures make males, warmer temperatures make females. And that has actually been shown to influence which sex they're going to be. Now, quick aside, when it comes to climate change, every year, do you think, I don't know how well you guys are paying attention to the news and science and stuff like that, but with every year, are we seeing average global temperatures rising or falling? Yeah, this year, 2023, is going to be the hottest year ever. I've lived in Florida my whole life. I have never experienced a summer as hot as what we had. We're normally low 90s. It was upper 90s almost every day. Well, if you go to the beaches where these sea turtles are laying their eggs, and then you go in the ocean where these sea turtles are living, the oceans are getting hotter. The beaches are getting hotter. And so the majority of turtles hatching from these nests are females. What is that going to do to turtle populations? They're going to drop because what do you need in order to make more babies? You need males too. But if the majority of turtles hatching from nests are females because they're too hot, you're going to have a low male count, and that's going to result in a population decline of the sea turtles. And that's something that scientists are noticing. Another one is going to be orchid flower color is influenced by soil pH. Hopefully you all know that the pH scale is on a scale of 0 to 14. 0 to 6.9 is acidic. 7.1 to 14 is basic. 7 in the middle is neutral. If you walked into Publix right now, you could walk to Publix from here. And they normally have this flower section close to where you walk in. You can get different color flowers of orchids. So to go back, let me share the screen. Let's see. Take a look at those. You got dark purple orchids, light purple orchids, white orchids, even yellow orchids. The pH level of the soil, not their genetics, influences the color of the flowers. And then here's another example. I'm sure some of you might go, oh, look, it's so cute. Look at this. Not that. I'll get back to that. Oh, look at him. That is an Arctic fox. That is the same individual. Let's say that's Tom. Both pictures are of Tom. Now, if I zoom in on this one, that is a picture of that Arctic fox in the summertime. This is the same individual in the wintertime. Let me tell you what's going on here. And the fox is a predator, so he'll rip your face off. Maybe. So we got Arctic fox. Fur color in summer versus winter. Now, this is pretty much a no-brainer. What season are you going to have more UV radiation? And the winter would be less. UV rays influence the fox's fur coat. When the UV rays are very strong and prevalent in the summertime, the white fur is shed and a gray undercoat appears. It would also be helpful that this animal is a predator and it needs to sneak up on its prey. There's really not a lot of snow in the wintertime, or in the summertime, I mean. So if it tried to sneak up on its prey and it's solid white, the prey is going to see it coming. So it's advantageous to shed its white coat when the summertime comes, when there's more UV radiation, and it can camouflage better. But when the days get shorter and there's less UV radiation, the snow starts to come, the gray fur goes away and the white undercoat will come up. Another example of this is when you guys go to the beach. I'm sure a lot of you go to the beach. I've seen Brand out there taking selfies all the day. Influencer in the wild. Do you all ever see a seagull with a black head? You ever see a seagull with a white head? Same bird. Different colored feathers at different times of the year. I think they're black-headed in the winter and white-headed in the summer. I think that's it. And I got another one for you. I saw a picture of Nemo. Anybody know where I'm going with this? So in the movie Finding Nemo, at the very beginning, Nemo and his wife, I don't know what her name is. Let's say it's Rhonda, are getting all their eggs prepared and like, oh, we've got a whole family here. Look at all of our eggs. And then the barracuda comes. The barracuda is a predator, and it kills Marlin's wife, destroys most of the eggs. There's only one egg left. Now is Nemo. Here's the thing with some fish, and clownfish are some of these fish. They can change their sex from male to female, female to male. And it takes a female clownfish to have a male stay a male. But if the female goes away, the male will become the female. So in Disney, what they didn't teach you guys when it came out is that when Marlin's wife died, Marlin would have changed genders to female. And then when Nemo hatched, Nemo would have been a male, and Marlene now, and Nemo would have been a mated pair. Isn't Disney so magical? Here's another one. Simba and Nala were half siblings. Mufasa's their father. Didn't know if you knew that. All right. See if there's any others I have here. Here's one. Back to humans real quick. Rondé and Tiki Barber. One was a buccaneer, one was a giant. They're twin brothers. But I looked up their stats, and I don't have it up here, but I'll tell you, Rondé is 5'10", 183. Tiki is 5'10", 205. Rondé's position was defensive back. You got to be lighter and faster. Tiki was a running back. You got to be bigger, able to take a hit and plow through a tackle. Tiki got bigger than his twin brother, likely due to a different diet, different exercise regimen. Despite the fact they're twins, I remember growing up when I was in high school, they were playing. And I remember always being able to tell the difference between Tiki and Rondé because Tiki was just a little bit bigger because he was a running back. He had more muscle. That's, again, another example of the environment shaping your phenotype. Okay. All right. Let's switch gears now, everybody, to the second topic that is on your notes for today. And that's going to be test crosses. Now, you kind of had this before. What I'm about to say might sound familiar from a worksheet you guys had last week. You are a pigeon breeder and you raise prize-winning pigeons, and you had this beautiful female pigeon who is checkered and red-winged. She's homozygous dominant, and you want to breed her. You find a shady pigeon dealer who has a male pigeon who's also checkered, feathered, and red-colored. He assures you that the pigeon is homozygous dominant, but you don't know for sure. How can you prove it? You remember that one? Here's how it goes. I'm going to break it down for you. First off, test crosses is how you determine if an individual with a dominant phenotype is homozygous dominant or heterozygous. All right. So I'm going to give you guys an example here. I raise frogs. Pretty weird, but I raise frogs. And in frogs, green is the dominant allele, and brown is recessive. I have this beautiful green frog, and I know that it is homozygous dominant. I want to breed my frog with another homozygous dominant frog. And so there's this shady frog dealer, and he has a frog of the opposite sex that I can breed mine with his, but I have to buy it. Now, my eyes are working just fine, and I can see that this frog is green. But what are the two genotypes that this frog could be, knowing that green is dominant, brown is recessive? Can you tell by looking at it? No. Most of you are brunette, and in humans, brown hair, black hair is a dominant trait. I cannot tell by looking at Josh, looking at Joe, looking at Caden, looking at Ella, looking at anybody, whether you are homozygous dominant or heterozygous. However, when I look at Diora, when I look at Lucy, when I look at Caitlin over there, they're blonde. When I see Sarah, you're a liar. When I look at my natural blondes, what do I know they are beyond a shadow of a doubt? Yeah, that's the only option. That's the only possibility. So here's negotiator Thorson. Here's what we're gonna do. So I'll buy your frog if you can prove to me that it's homozygous dominant. How can he prove it? Well, you take this shady frog that I'm not so sure about, and you breed it with what? A homozygous recessive frog. Now, listen very carefully to my words, everyone. Well, let me see if I can get brown highlighter. There we go. What is this brown frog's genotype? Now, some of you might say, oh, how do you know? All right. What other genotype could it be? It couldn't. Ryan's like, there isn't one. Lucy is homozygous recessive. Period. Caitlin is homozygous recessive. Period. Diora is homozygous recessive. Period. Joe, I don't know. He's homozygous dominant or heterozygous. I don't know which one. So I cross these two, And let's say they make about, I don't know, 60 little tadpole eggs. Okay? Out of those 60, 100% are green. They grow up, they all became green frogs. If we were one out of 60 frogs, 100% are green. What could you conclude this mysterious green frog's genotype is? I would agree that it would be homozygous dominant. And what would all these babies in the F1 generation be? Heterozygous. Very good. On the other hand, guys, so let me put or, here's option 2. Here's my brown one. Here's my green one. Green, I know it has one dominant allele. I don't know what the other one is. I'm going to cross these two, and I get 60 eggs. And I have approximately 50% green, 50% brown. If that green parent was capable of making a brown frog, just like, let's say Joe was the father of a blonde little girl, what could you conclude their genotypes are? Heterozygous. What are the genotypes of the green offspring? Heterozygous. What are the genotypes of the brown offspring? Homozygous recessive. Where do those brown frogs get both of their recessive alleles from? The brown parent and the green parent. This is what a test cross is all about. So, in a test cross, an individual with a dominant phenotype is bred. Bred is the past tense of breed. You don't say breeded, you say bred. A dominant phenotype is bred with a recessive phenotype. Okay? If all offspring have the dominant phenotype, what could you conclude about the parent with the dominant phenotype if all of its offspring have the dominant phenotype? Yep. If all the offspring have the dominant phenotype, the parent with the dominant phenotype is likely homozygous dominant. Can you guys tell me what the opposite of this would be? Can you phrase it for me? Ella? Or not all. And Ella, you said half. It's not even half. It could be 1. Let's say Jill has 10 kids. If one of them is blonde, that's all I need. What does that tell you he is? If his wife is blonde, Joe's clearly brunette. If they have 10 kids, if he makes so much as 1 blonde offspring, done. Deal sealed. He's heterozygous. There's no way that that blonde child could exist unless she inherited a blonde allele from mommy and daddy. Now, if you want to talk about epigenetics and methylation, that's the top that could happen, but we're just talking about pure genetics, not methylation. So what Ella said holds true. If any offspring have the recessive phenotype, even if it's 1, the parent with the dominant phenotype is heterozygous. So I know you guys probably won't remember this when you become parents one day, but if you are brunettes and you're not sure if you're homozygous dominant or heterozygous, I will say this. If you are brunette and you have a blonde parent, you are heterozygous. But if both of your parents are brunette and you are brunette and you end up having a blonde child, you are heterozygous. And at least one of your parents was too. All right. That is it.